Residents, go in and stay in your houses. Drive the rats in the tank area.
What's up, everybody, on the Manic Monday? Holy shitballs, what a day it has been. Just from anything from having to work to be working on stuff. It's such a busy day here on, busy week for Black Flame Entertainment. There's so much. So there's going to be 2 interviews starting tomorrow. We have Gene Hoglan coming to the underground, and then the next day we have Sister Kill Cycle coming to the underground, and then we're going to have another edition with the goddamn program this Friday night. Hopefully Hoof Beast will be available. That would be awesome. We'll talk about it. That's the one thing. Well, if not Friday, maybe Saturday. Either day. So be looking for it then.
Okay.
And then that's going to lead us all the way up to the Halloween edition of Tracks of the Damned next Monday, which I have a pretty good fucking idea for. So we'll definitely discuss that as well. And then Reaper's Underground Halloween Extravaganza Tuesday night with the Doomlicious Ripple Recordings artist Temple of the Fuzz Witch. Holy crap, I got to see those guys perform live at the festival, the Tennessee Metal Devastation Festival. Fucking great bunch of guys. They were the perfect ones to bring to the show for that day. So, but tonight we are here to discuss what we feel like. I have a top 5. Hoof Beast has a top 5 best album performances. And boy, was this fucking tough. Holy crap balls. Because this man's work spans so many bands.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, oh, okay, so you get to choose from these 4 groups. It's like, no, it's like 10, you know? So we'll be doing that here in a moment. But before we get started, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break to our brothers over at Villain Arts Tattoos. Check it out. As always, Villain Arts Tattoos, biggest tattoo convention in the United States. They come to your area. You better make sure you get there. Get yourself a quality tattoo by excellent, excellent shops. And of course, take in all of the performers and the family. Okay. What's up, Kyler? Always glad to have you tuning in, man. Make sure that we are sharing this shit out as we are about to count down each of us 5 albums that we felt was Gene, the legendary extreme metal drummer Gene Hoglan, has done. Because let's face it, there's so many. So I don't know. I can go first if you want, which is totally fine by me. Oops, hold on a second. because my computer wants to be a butthead yet again. My touchpad is a piece of shit. So, okay. I am starting with, and there's no particular order here, folks, just so you know. I didn't rank them or anything like that. But I mean, I have to start where it all began. And that is Dark Angel's Darkness Descends album. You know, it's late in the 80s for the most part when this album came out. So much thrash has been happening since the early 80s. And when Dark Angel came out, this was definitely heavier. I never heard drumming like Gene's drumming that I heard on this record. He was 50 times as fast. Dave Lombardo pretty much owned the first, 6-7 years of the 80s, at least, as far as being like the guy. And then Gene Hoglan comes along and just ups that game incredibly. And he's not a right-handed drummer either. He's a left-handed drummer. He just happens to play on a right-hand lead drum kit. That's just what he prefers. And, you know, on this record, he shows versatility, power, obviously speed, and just overall very musical, you know, with his use of China cymbals in general, and just really tasty fills. So, you know, that's how I first discovered Gene as a drummer. So that's the one I had to start with first because I don't know. There's so many damn good songs on that album. Obviously, the title track, Merciless Death, is still by far one of my favorite tracks of his today. The Burning of Sodom and Death is Certain, Life is Not. That's an anthem, man. Don't even tell me it's not. But, you know, the really cool thing is just by going through some interviews of his lately, I got to find out that, you know, the guy that produced that record also produced Slayer. So was able to get that signature sound. And he was, I don't know, just, you know, it's later in the 80s, so technology has gotten better. But the fact that, you know, they were able to get that recorded makes so much sense. But also what I didn't know is that he is multi-talented. Holy shit. On this record, that's him playing guitar. He says not very well, because you can tell by the guitar tone. But he was also doing the lyrics. He was also doing all the press and everything else label related. He was like, I don't know, me. For so many years. It's like, holy shit. These are things you find out later that, you know, was just never talked about. So that album aces with me.
Definitely a legendary album by Dark Angel. Ranks high with just about everybody. But you'll see that I didn't pick that one at all.
I think I know which one you did pick, but
I have my reasons.
Which is okay.
First off, and what do they call him? Is he the atomic
He
clock?
is known as the atomic clock.
Yes.
For a reason.
And boy, does he ever show how he is the atomic clock on this album. Fear Factories, Mechanize. So Dino had left for 2 albums. Dino comes back in 2009. There's
the guitar player left?
What's that?
The guitar player left?
Yeah, Dino left a long time ago. He was gone for 2 albums, then he came back.
Okay, all right.
And so when he comes back, not only does he come back, he brings Gene Hoglan for the album. Strongest lineup. I'm sorry, Mr. Herrera, but this is the strongest lineup for them, I would say. This is an album that I remember listening to, but I was buying so many CDs, I never listened to it real heavily until
Mm-hmm.
we did Fear Factory a few months ago. And then I don't even think I picked this in my top five. Now it's definitely in there. It is so good. I guess I just didn't, I skimmed over it when returning to it. This album's flipping amazing. They were making such a statement by bringing in Gene and two by Dino coming back.
Yeah, because having Dino there with him, it just makes it that much stronger because
Mhm.
Dino has a certain way of playing riffs that the other guy didn't. I don't know why I completely had forgotten about that, but I'm glad you reminded me. But yeah, definitely on that record, it sounded more like a good, powerful Fear Factory album compared
Perfectly
to,
clean though.
yeah,
His timing, like it's robotic. It's like he's a robot.
very much so. Probably even more so than Raymond Herrera because everyone was always like, oh, he's faking it, man. Oh, he's faking it. Well, shit. Gene Hoglan went on there and just blew the whole fucking thing up. Just precise, and he knew what Fear Factory was known for, so he brought it, and he brought it in such a cool way.
Did
uh
you see the video of Gene playing with Strapping Young Lad? I think it was in 2006, and they were playing Love. It was at some festival. And did you see what Gene had on his ankles?
the ankle weights
Yes.
that has
Oh
been
my
widely
God.
discussed throughout his
Yeah.
career, and the fact that he still does it today, it really shows why his feet can do what they can do with little
Yeah.
to no effort, because his philosophy there was, you know, when you put that kind of pressure on yourself as you're playing, it makes you even lighter on your feet when they're not on.
Mm.
So it's not because he's trying to punish himself, it's because he's trying to maintain, especially after 30 years, man, to maintain the speed that he can do. And when you watch the man play, he doesn't move a lot because he doesn't
Yeah, that's
have to.
true.
He doesn't have to. His wrists are impeccable. Holy crap. But man, his feet, he's one of the few drummers that I can honestly say in metal, the feet match the hands. Whatever the hands can do, his feet can do.
Mm.
And that, I know that's saying a lot, even going up, against the drummer for like Meshuggah and some of those other guys. I don't know. When it comes to Gene, it's just like second nature for him.
Gene is more artistic to me. It's those little flares with the cymbals that he does all the time. He's just like, and he had some of the best opportunities to showcase this in
Absolutely.
really heavy forms of metal. So with Death, with Chuck Schuldiner,
Oh, we're
oh
gonna
my
get to
gosh,
that.
oh my gosh, oh my
Oh, we're gonna
gosh.
get to that.
And then he goes from that to Strapping Young Lad that I would dare say is much more intense.
Oh, by a milestone. It really was. Um, and that's one of the things that he had talked about in another interview about, he never wanted to rip anyone off. He would look at what everyone else was doing and then try something different on purpose because it's never been done in metal before.
Mhm.
So when it comes to Death, he was able to achieve that because everyone was expecting. He always talks about the diehards, and we talk about that too. The people that were
Mhm.
there from the beginning, they feel like the first one or
Mhm.
two albums, that is them. We want that every time, kind of thing. Just like with Cannibal Corpse people,
Mhm.
because I still say their best record was, um, oh my goodness, it's escaping me. Crap, it was
The
the one.
Bleeding
No, it was like,
Kills.
which one?
Kills.
Nope, that one was like pretty much signature Cannibal Corpse. But anyway, he would talk about the diehards, and he was like, well, when he got into Death, he was like, he knew that everyone was going to be expecting that record to sound just like those first couple of Death records. So he's like, that's not what Chuck wanted. He was super surprised. He was ready to bring the pain, so to speak, the way that he was thinking everybody wanted to hear. But, you know, he said Chuck Schuldiner was like, I'm evolving. I'm not going to stay in this one box. He's like, I want to take chances. I want to do things different. So naturally, with that, you get a completely different sounding record. And the one that I chose is Symbolic, which I'm pretty sure I got that over here somewhere. Now, there's a reason I chose it, because let me tell you, there was nothing wrong with the first one that he did with Death. So there it is. What a cover, man. Holy crap balls. So the thing that even Gene himself says about this record, he and Chuck had so much more time to create and try different things. It didn't sound forced. He didn't feel forced. He's like, we actually got to write riff and drums like together. Because when he first got into Death, as he was leaving out of Dark Angel at the time, Chuck already had a bunch of fucking riffs down. He said back in those days, they had everyone had like some sort of a 4-track that they could record their riffs on. So naturally, you know, Chuck no longer had Rob Reinhardt. Hopefully I said that right. He's like the guy, the drummer, you know, for Death that everyone.
Sean
Reinhardt. That's it. God darn it. I knew I was getting it wrong. But anyway, you knew where I was going with that.
Yeah.
But, and he was like, you know, he didn't want to copy him. So there are a lot of odd rhythms that are in this album. And I've been trying to figure it out myself. I'm like, well, did Chuck just say, hey, you know, I'm going to write this in this, you know, time signature and you're just going to do it or whatever? Nope. Turns out Gene threw in a South American rhythm that has been made famous by the great Steve Gadd, who happens to be his biggest influence as a drummer growing up. And it makes so much sense. You want to know why some of these metal drummers can play the way they do? It's because they had a jazz fusion drummer that they idolized and took different ideas from. And it's like I've always said, when you apply that to metal, you get an album like Symbolic.
Wow. Yep.
So that's my pick. Like I said, nothing wrong with the previous Death album that he did. It's just that you especially after he said it, I felt better because I was like, this doesn't seem like a smooth transition. You know what I mean? Going from the previous drummer to Gene. And that's why, because he didn't really get to, they did the album in 3 weeks, man. Can you imagine? Just about every band that Gene has been in, they get it done in 3 weeks or less. We're talking about perfection here. You know? And I think back to when I was doing Black Tar, we got it done in a weekend. So, you know, that just goes to show you, you give Gene and them a little bit of time, you get something really tasty.
Well, this is my favorite Gene Hoglan performance as well, Symbolic by Death. My piece on this is where Gene announced himself as an elite. He might have used some garbage cans and things like that in previous years, but it was this album that he refined that jazz fusion element on these odd time signature fills. Just absolute artistry, everything that he did. And the way that they mic'd, I want you to please ask him about how he mic'd for this album versus the individual thought patterns. Because boy,
there is a difference.
His drum sounds so much better in Symbolic.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that he's talked about is some of the studios where he's recorded, there were artists that were super pop mainstream, that they had come in, done one of those huge fucking anthems like We Are the World and shit. So it's like, come on, guys, 80s, early 90s, all those big mega hits that came out, they've recorded at some of the same places. So that's why you get such different quality. And he talked about being able to, especially during Death's albums there, they were able to record at a studio where the great Steve Vai, actually he recorded at Steve Vai's studio, and the kit that was in there wasn't even his. It was Dean Castronovo's kit. So you think about him being one of the great session players of all time in metal. You put Gene behind his fucking kit, and that's what you got on that record. That's why his drums sound the way they do.
They are
a lot of attention to detail.
Tasty. And it also seemed like Chuck felt not only challenged in a healthy way with Gene, but that they both came together. I don't know how they wrote an album to where there's so much space. Now, really, that's, much less than a second for all of these things that are happening. But Gene plays in such a tasty way that there's space in between that you can hear the guitars, you can hear Chuck, and you can still hear every single thing. The cymbals were also mic'd perfectly on Symbolic.
Oh, it's most so definitely.
Clean. It's
like
clean,
I said,
but raw.
They had so much time to do that record and like get it the way they wanted to. He said this was the first time I actually got to just concentrate on being a drummer. Didn't have to do PR, didn't have to write any lyrics, didn't have to do guitar parts. Just be a drummer. And it shows. It really does. So, that's one of the things I was going to ask him tomorrow about Dark Angel. Now that he's kind of got back with them, does he feel like he still has to do that? Because I certainly hope not. But they've had some member changes. And that's one of the big things that I've heard him talk about before is when he was leaving Dark Angel, that was like mid-90s. He said all the like very well established bands were starting to go through the exact same thing. Members were leaving. Every major band was getting new people coming in. He mentioned Paul Bostaph, that he was going into Slayer and, this, that, and the other thing. It's like so fucking interesting that's why you got all these like super killer records from some of the bands that you've always known and loved, but they all sounded different. And that's because you never heard these two people play together before. Real quick, just a lot of comments out here.
Oh, cool.
First of all, thank you, Kyler. As always, he says, I'm your diehards. We appreciate you. And Xeno Music. Yes, we do make metal music. Actually, Hoof Beast, I think, makes better than I do, but just saying.
Well, I just try to be me.
Right. Kyler says, imagine drumming for so many bands and trying to keep track of your rhythm. I've played for so many fucking bands in my time that And they were so different from band to band. No one band was the same. So it's like, I think I've kind of felt sometimes where I'm like, oh, I remember doing this lick in this band and that, but keeping track overall of a good polished song, it's not so tough, at least for me. But the older I get, we'll see. I remember you put that one video out where for your other man, and you're like, it was a little sloppy. I said, little sloppy? What are you talking about? Sounded fucking great to me. Okay, moving on. Strapping Young Lad is, and I actually didn't get the cover for it. It's the one that has Skeesis on it. That one in particular, that song from that album, like I said, I forget which one it's on. The rhythms are just mind-blowing. One person categorized it as he made slap popular before people started to use the term "this slaps" because of what he was doing with his double kick. And to be honest with you, anything that he did with Strapping Young Lad was definitely ahead of its time. He would do a lot of double stroking with his feet, and it was almost like he could do that and get into a quick kind of a 5-stroke roll, maybe even a 4-stroke, and his use of broken triplets, which is, I use that shit literally all the time because I just love it. And he made that shit famous. I'm telling you. So, and that's why like I said, I don't have the album name, but pretty much all of Strapping Young Lad is a tutorial for what a drummer should be.
Oh my gosh.
Just dynamite, precision, and power. And it's that, yes, I'm coming back to it. The jazz crack. It is a quick wrist movement, just like you can see me doing it right now. Same hand, same thing. It's a quick snap of the wrist to where you let the stick, the weight of the stick, smack the drum in such a, I don't know, it's like the ultimate attack. You don't have to rim shot when you do this. So many metal drummers are such heavy hitters and they play those fucking tree sticks, the tree trunk sticks, that I'm just like, dude, you don't have to use, I'm using fucking 7/8. That's a jazz drumstick. And most of the shit that I've done, you would be like, how are you getting that? It's like, no, I'm not rim shotting, man. It's just what? Just a quick movement. And I think if more metal drummers would do that, they wouldn't need triggers on their snare drums. Just saying. Check out any of the strapping Young Lad albums, because goddamn. Good afternoon, Cam Revelle. Oh, hang on. And I'm back.
And also, like, one thing I would say about Strapping Young Lad is I would much rather see them live and listen to them live than I do on their albums. So I never bought any of their albums, but I saw them, and I've seen Devin Townsend, but I just don't like his music that much to listen on like a CD. But the live shows, he is so intense. And he was much more intense with Strapping Young Lad than Devin Townsend when I saw him about 4 years apart.
Yeah. And that was one thing Gene has talked about too, was like, he knew that Devin he's like, I'm not musically happy. So that's why he had like this whole other thing planned for, the Devin Townsend project. But, and which is weird because he thinks Devin was actually more intense with that music versus Strapping Young Lad. And I was like, really?
Not on stage.
Maybe it's like vocal content or just the weirdness of it. I don't know. Personally, I don't think he should have ever stopped doing it.
Me too. I prefer Strapping Young Lad any day. It's much more thrash punk oriented and real memorable, much more aggressive. And when I saw Strapping Young Lad, they opened up for Fear Factory, so I got to see Gene for the first time. It was on Thanksgiving Day. They played on freaking Thanksgiving. And
there's a good meal for you.
I want to I want to ask I want to ask Gene if with all of this spitting that Devin Townsend used to do, he would spit up in the air. It had to have come right back down on him. Throughout the show, he was hawking loogies out into the audience as well. And he's gross. So when I saw him in 2005, he was totally bald, like shiny bald on the top there, but he still had kind of like dreadlocks. And they were real thin and gross looking. Man, he was so intense. The most intense front man I have ever seen any show.
During tomorrow's interview, you should definitely ask that question, and I'll put it up on the screen.
Like you can't miss Devin.
Let's just see what he'll say.
Snorting and spitting throughout every fucking show. Gene he will have to have known about this and dodged him or got totally hit by him.
I mean, and Gene's got a lot of fucking hair, man. Still has it.
Yeah.
So I could only imagine it's like, oh yeah, I bathed in fucking, Devin's loogies every night.
Yes. Oh, good God.
Did your hair ever end up getting crusty?
Or was it a conditioner?
Oh, damn. Oh shit.
So my third one, I guess, it could be Alien. That was Gene's first album with Strapping Young Lad. Or I really like 2000. No wait, yeah, that one was 2005. When he came in, it was a City, I think. Let me go down what year that was.
Yes,
1997. City was the first album. They're both outstanding. Like I think after leaving Death, he was only with Death for 2 albums, and then he joined Strapping Young Lad.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was his first time really getting to, I think, grow as a percussionist with Death and actually writing and then recording something for the world to have forever. And then he has that experience, and then he gets with somebody that is as intense as Devin Townsend, and he went off. But I didn't like the recording of the drums in that album. It's too boxy. It's kind of going back to Dark Angel's early albums, like just too boxy. I couldn't hear his performance as clearly.
Most definitely. Elliot Johnson says they probably have umbrellas. Could you imagine?
I know. And another guy who does that is Travis Ryan of Cattle Decapitation. He does it throughout.
I'm sure he does that for dramatic effect.
Yeah, he does it. If it's at least an hour set, he will do it 3 or 4 times. If it's an hour and a half, there's going to be showers about 8 or 9 times.
Well, and when you think about that kind of aggressive singing, I'm sure they end up, bringing up from the depths.
Yeah.
That they just got to release it and then try to make it look as creepy as possible, I guess. Or yeah, Kyler says, or ponchos. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, ponchos too. God. But you'd still breathe it in.
Aye. All right. So my next one, which right before I say that, the interesting thing is in 1998, Gene stepped into the realm of melodic symphonic black metal with a band called Old Man's Child,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of my favorites of that realm.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because it's had, past Demi Borger musicians in it, but
Mm-hmm.
just that project is so fucking evil and just grandiose. It's like one of those things, some people won't sit down and listen to a symphony by Beethoven. I'll put on Old Man's Child to get my fix because that's what it feels like. And I love dude's Galder's fucking his voice.
Yeah.
Sick. And then he layers the fuck out of it.
Mm.
So, but I am about to step into the realm of Testament,
Mm-hmm.
Brotherhood of the Snake. Now, this was not the first time that I heard Gene playing with Testament, and Testament has been a favorite of mine since aeons before.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a fan of Chuck Billy as a vocalist,
Mm-hmm. Me too.
especially in the thrash realm, because it's just powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely something that Gene talked about was the man can literally rumble a floor. He says, I've never been in a band where the vocalist could literally have that much power.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always like, I wonder what it would be like for him to do death metal vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So once Gene got in the band, he was the reason that Chuck went for the
Yeah.
fucking gutturals all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And boy, could Chuck do it. Woo. I don't know about nowadays so much, obviously, we get older, but he was really starting to bring it. And this record came out in 2016. And before I could even get it on the Spotify, that's when I saw the first Drumeo performance by Gene Hoglan. I'm like, holy shit, Drumeo finally had Gene on. Because they've had a couple other extreme guys on before that. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what about Gene?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there he was, and he opens up with the Brotherhood of the Snake as the opening track before he starts to talk about how he does what he does. Fucking hooked, man. I was like, this is just a badass track.
Oh yeah.
Hands fucking down, just powerful, thrashy, but fucking hell, the groove and the little percussive that he would do before getting
Yeah.
into the verse, which was like a very breakdowny kind of groove. Gene's got it all, man. Come on, we all know that
Mm-hmm.
shit, but I'm not used to hearing him really do that. So that song like did it for me. So that's why that album sticks out for me from the Testament catalog, because I just love the grooves that he's providing there. It's not over Philly, and it's not even overuse of cymbals either. But
Mm-hmm.
god damn, if you've ever seen his setup, which you can kind of see it in the back of our broadcast, he's got 2 mega bell rides on either side. So he's able to do these little power twinklies, is what I call it, when he's doing a groove. It's like and just come right back, and it's just like shooting my load just all over the place. It's like
Yeah,
that's
and
why I
he's got
started. That's
those,
why I started doing it.
and he's got those cymbals way up high, 90 degrees, like straight out to his right and to his left. I
Mm-hmm.
loved watching that. Like, there's a video of strapping young lad making the album Alien and going through the song Love, and it shows him doing really difficult stuff, and then playing both arms out like that and doing a rhythm and coming back and going straight out there. His efficiency and how he doesn't move. There's not a lot of up and down. It's just
Not
like
a lot of movement. And that
really
comes from
smooth.
jazz drumming, people. You don't see jazz drummers having to come out here and like throw their body into their kit. It's because they don't have to. you know? And it's really kind of reminiscent of Terry Bozzio in my opinion.
Mm.
He was kind of the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen his ginormous freaking kit, but he's just
Mm-hmm.
like dee dee dee, and it's like zero effort.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's very evident on this record. It's an even tastier kind of a thrash record for Testament from even
Mm-hmm.
some of the previous ones they did together. Uh, let me see here. Elliot says, I saw Testament in Norfolk, Virginia when they were touring for their Formation Damnation album. Great show. And then I'm not sure either. I may have to look this one up. He says, I can't remember the name of the drummer from Napalm Death, but that dude's crazy. Yep,
Mitch.
I have to
Mitch.
admit.
Yeah, his name
Excellent.
is Mitch. The first one they had Mitch through Harmony Corruption, and then he left. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I'll go with the Testament album because I had chosen one of those out of my top 5, and mine is Dark Roots of Earth.
Oh, that fucking album cover. If people didn't buy that based on that album cover, something's wrong with you.
Yeah, I had a
So
signed
good.
poster. Yes, yes. So here we go. So Gene is now racking up amazing musicians to play with. And he had also recorded an album in 1997 with Testament. I think it was called Dominion. And and so he had already had an experience with them. And so here he comes on full time after only being with Fear Factory for 3 years. And so Testament is not a real, or they weren't a real dynamic type of thrash. It was very straightforward, very tasty, very melodic. Chuck Billy fit in just right with the right amount of grit in there. Eric Peterson, great guitar riff merchant, with really tasty Alex Skolnick solos. But I think Gene influenced that album because in that album, not every song, but in parts of songs, you can hear Gene's jazz influence in there. And he is such an artist. Because I know what in my head, I know what the typical thrash downbeat as fast as you can
Right.
types of beats, and this is what you heard in the early 80s up through the end of the 80s until the double kicks. Death metal brought in the double kicks after being inspired by Mr. Dave Lombardo. And anyways,
so true.
Forgot where I was going with that one, but anyways, just I think his influence with Testament was remarkable on there. I've never heard any Testament album prior to that. Well, the Dominion one, to where it just had a different feel. It's like there's an artist in the house, guys. Everybody else needs to pull up their songwriting gymnastics.
Yeah, definitely. Most people will say, oh, if a band changes a guitar player, that's what changes the overall feel of the band. Not necessarily true. A drummer, even sometimes a bass player, because, people give bass players shit all the time, but damn it, there's definitely out of this world bass players that can really bring something different to the table. And Gene as a drummer is no different because, like you said, he's a true artist and he knows all the other instruments and how they fit together and how putting songs together can go from working with all these different guys. And just as a musician tip, the reason he's gotten to do and play with these bands, he's toured with them in the past. So that just goes to show you, you never know what opportunities can come around. He calls it doing favors for my friends. So it's kind of like whenever there was a vacant seat either in a live setting, he's been called to do tours, not
Yeah.
the record, and vice versa. He gets calls all the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what has kept him this fucking machine of a drummer, because every band that he plays with knows what they're getting, because he brings something different to the table. Now, could you ever see Lars Ulrich doing something like that?
Oh my gosh. My God.
I had to say it. I had to. There was an article a little bit ago about Dave Lombardo defending Lars Ulrich as a drummer, and I was laughing my fucking ass off. I'm like, really, Davey boy, Davey, this is Lars bullshit Ulrich we're talking about here.
Yeah.
How are you going to defend the guy? Because he could play good once? Nah. Ain't going to happen. But yeah, definitely his influence does rub off on some of these other groups that he ends up playing with. And to find out that, that's basically, how he started to jump from band to band is because there were open seats and he didn't have anything going. He's like, sure, I'll come do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ends up being a resident for a while.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of think that's like his thing, though. Like, he doesn't have to stay with one band because there's so many different dimensions to him. It's I'd love to go do the heavy thing for a while. I'd love to do something more extreme, or even something a little bit more experimental. Which brings us to Death Clock. Oh, man. I heard the story that Metalocalypse had come out, and, Gene's name was big enough at the time. Go figure, in the metal world. And they called him and asked him if he wanted to do it. Because his name again, I forget. The guy that made the whole project.
Yeah.
Damn it.
I don't know.
We'll just say the Metalocalypse guy.
Yeah.
He said, when I was making the music for the show, these parts were meant for you. Like, this was taken from like what I've heard you do in other bands. So, I mean, it's just no secret that he can just fit right into what's going on there, which is awesome. But for me, it was the Deatha album 2. The first record, don't get me wrong, I love it. It's great. But Deatha 2 really sounded like they were much, much more serious with it. From hearing him talk a little bit about it on some other interviews, it was kind of like that same thing. Like, the songs that were pretty much already written for the first one, basically all he had to do was come in and do his thing. But he was a little bit more active in the writing process, which is why that second album, you're starting to take it more seriously. You know what I mean? And then, Gene obviously liked it so much that they went out and did a tour with it. You know what I mean? Which, that's one thing I've got to ask him. What's it like playing behind a screen and you don't see nobody? And they can't see you. Like, the whole band's just back there fucking vibing. And the crowd sees nothing but the cartoon. So, I don't know. That's why I kind of like that album a little bit more than the first one. It seemed like he had more to do with it. He was a little bit more comfortable and just bone crunching.
Yeah. Well, I can't argue with that. I didn't choose a Death Clock myself. I will say I don't know if there's a more of a mechanical kind of character to his drumming for Death Clock after coming out of Strapping Young Lad. maybe industrial a little bit, and with the way he kicks a lot for the Death Clock albums, but
Hmm.
he kind of
He's
changed
really
up
mimicking
his
the
style.
guitar riff.
Yeah, yeah, because this does not sound like Strapping Young Lad
Mm-mm.
or any of the Death albums.
Mm-mm. No, it's definitely its own entity, but I dig
So
it.
I've chosen Individual Thought Patterns, another
Nice.
Death album, because this is the first time that I heard him really bringing that jazz element
Hmm.
into the play. And the tracks that I would point you all to is The Philosopher and
Oh,
Mentally, yeah, The
that is a staple.
Philosopher and Mentally Blind for the percussion, Mentally Blind. Um,
Hmm.
yes, outstanding. He had really pulled himself, and to me, kind of linked himself to some of the off-time beats that Neil Peart was doing, and had been kind of the king of for 15 years in progressive rock. And here the torch has been handed off to Gene now with this album. Sean Reinert in the Human album right before this one did a great job. He brought in a lot of jazz influence,
Hmm.
but he didn't hold the pocket and add to the songs in the same way that Gene can. And the way that Steve Giorgio was growing but worked with Gene Hoglan as well. You can hear
Hmm.
every one of his little machine gun uh, hits on that bass throughout. Like that, this album is great. It's not as well produced, I would say, as Symbolic. Symbolic
Yeah,
is a much more clean production. Absolutely love that. I would take that over this, but this is pretty amazing. And this, to me, was Gene Hoglan's statement of here I am, and this is what I can do.
absolutely. And I couldn't think of a better band to move from the the legacy that was already in place with Dark Angel.
Hmm.
You know, he's come a super long way. And he even says that, he loves thrash. Um, but the gene that you hear on those first two
Hmm.
Dark Angel albums, it's not something that he would always want to do. I don't necessarily know if that's because of uh, stylistic or he was a much bigger guy, back in those days. Uh, can he still do it? Absolutely. I just think he
Hmm.
chooses not to because he just loves doing so much diverse type stuff.
Hmm.
Like I couldn't hear him blast beating for a 2 hour concert. That's not really up his alley. Can he do it? Sure.
Hmm.
But some people really love to do it. And then there are those that are just like, okay, that's pretty cool. Might use it here and there sparingly, but it's
Right.
not going to dominate my drumming.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we see a lot of variations now today as well, even in the black metal community. I think they're honestly probably
Hmm.
taking a page out of Gene's book on that.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with being so technical, 30 million, 30-second notes in the span of 4 bars. That's just groove. If there's no groove, I cannot
Yeah.
stress this enough. If there ain't a groove to what you're doing, it makes everything else sound stupid. It just doesn't feel good.
As I was growing up in high school, what I liked about Rush and listening to Rush and what Neil Peart was doing is I listened intently. I wanted to hear what each piece of brass was doing, all of the toms, the kicks, the snare. I wanted to hear everything. I wanted to be interested in that. Things were not washed out. He has an ability to, I don't know, he just simplifies things. Things are so clean that you can hear everything that he's doing. And this is not run of the mill kick, snare, kick, snare. It is off time, so creative with the cymbals, and everything sounds like he's so efficient. And if you guys watch him, what he does with his riffs, he's not really like throwing his whole body into things. Just outstanding.
Yeah, definitely check him out. For those of you out there in Black Flame Land, check him out on Drumeo. You'll see firsthand what we're talking about. Because, what you're hearing versus what you're seeing actually are two different things. And I definitely feel that it was Gene's creativity that gave way to the original drummer of Lamb of God and the way he utilizes the splash cymbals a little bit differently, China hits, and even double kick patterns, because that's all Gene.
Yeah.
He's never had to copy nobody because he never wanted to. It's everybody else copying him. Yep. I'll say that till the ends of the earth, man. Always will.
if I now Reaper, you would always be second best, but if I could have any drummer to do my albums, he's it. Without a doubt, without any hesitation. And maybe a couple of years ago it would have been Dave Lombardo, because I just loved how he could sit in that pocket in the South of Heaven and the Seasons in the Abyss albums. But
those were definitely Dave's best records.
Yep. But Gene is my drummer. That's who I would want. Nobody else. I mean, absolutely. I want to be in all the band pictures with him where he's wearing those black aviator glasses. He's fucking scary. He looks so tough. And then he takes them
off and you hear him speak and it's like,
yeah.
I didn't know that was coming out of you.
Yeah.
You guys will see what I mean tomorrow. Every single interview that I have studied leading up to tomorrow, it's like just the nicest guy.
Well, I'm curious if, sorry.
Oh no, go right ahead.
I was going to say, I'm very curious to see if you get him with sunglasses tomorrow for the interview, because I've seen a lot of interviews with him, and a lot of them he has sunglasses on.
If I can find my pair.
Yeah.
Could you imagine my big like Chips police glasses from the 70s?
Yeah, that's it.
Just started off like, as kind of like a joke, or, would Gene be secretly going, that fucking Reaper, what an asshole.
I know.
I'm like, I don't want to piss my hero off. That's not what I'm trying to do. No. Oh, shit. But yeah, it should be interesting because I don't know. All of the interviews that I've seen him do between 2016 and now, he hasn't been wearing them. I think that quote unquote public, like stage fright kind of shit that, sunglasses can kind of help you with when you're talking.
Yeah.
Maybe he's through it now. He's just like, fuck it. I've done so many of these.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. But major announcement time for this interview. And you guys that have tuned in tonight are the first ones to hear it, which I'll be messaging or posting shortly, that there is a time change. Originally, it was going to be 3 p.m. CST. There's been a change in Gene's schedule, and I wasn't going to be like, no, we must do it at that time. It's Gene fucking Hoglan. So, yes, it will be at 5:30 p.m. CST or 6:30 EST, whichever time zone you're in, for that interview. And I've already corrected it on the actual event on my page, as well as the Black Flame page too. That's all been changed. So when hopefully Facebook gives you the, notification that, hey, such and such is about to start, you'll know exactly what time. Now, for those of you that normally work during that time, hopefully you'll be off now. This actually gives some of you guys a chance to get off work and then fucking get ready to talk to the man himself. So do not forget tomorrow at 5:30 CST is when the interview is actually going to take place. You better not forget. Doesn't matter. You know me. I'm going to go live probably about an hour or so before, reminding everyone that it's going to go down. So make sure you're there. This is your chance, folks. Ask the man questions. He's very receptive. Just don't ask anything stupid. And I've assured his agent that it is the most laid back conversation ever. So nothing super crazy at all. Just two guys, two professionals having. I'm going to be like this most of the time, but you know. And then if that wasn't enough, Wednesday night, we've got this kind of a goth rock band. They're more on the metal side, but they are making waves across the country and definitely feel that it's better than Marilyn Manson shit ever was. We'll be here Wednesday at 8 p.m. CST. So for fans of them, or if you're just curious, these guys are fucking awesome. Very cool guys. And then we will have the goddamn program will be making its return yet again sometime this weekend, either Friday or Saturday. Just depends on my co-pilot there. So thank you all. That's our list of what we felt was Gene's most memorable album performances. And, you know, if some of those haven't been on your radar or you're not familiar with some of the, I don't know how that's even possible, but if some of those albums you haven't heard yet, go check them out, guys. They're easy to get to. Spotify makes everything simple. It's not really about the artist, but it's about the listener. So chances are you'll be able to find every single one of those. And if you end up liking it, fucking buy it. It's worth buying.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Listen to the whole thing. Not just a tune, one track, two tracks. Listen to it all the way through. Guaranteed something in there is going to grab you. So we thank you all for joining us on this auspicious Monday evening after such a manic day of work and all kinds of stupid crap. As you're getting ready to go forth through into the rest of the work week, you know, don't take no shit from anybody. Be yourself, stay weird, and always stay heavy.
All residents, go in and stay in your houses. Drive the rats in the tank area.